You are now listening to Artists at Work.
Artists at Work.
Artists at Work. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another podcast of the Artists at Work podcast. I'm your host, 1AM.
Isaias.
So the Artists at Work podcast, for you guys who don't know what it is, this is a podcast where artists share knowledge through experiences. Today we don't have a guest, but we're going to be doing kind of just like a recap of everything that we've learned.
Well, all the time in the last 2 years seems all like a blur, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
We keep forgetting, but we're remembering how long this has been going on. The podcast has moved from like the room, and then we got a studio in Santa Cruz, and then she was doing it in that space, which was much better for it. And then we gave the studio up, and then we were doing it in.
So you're just breezing past it, but
I know.
So when I first started doing it, obviously it was during the pandemic, so I had to do it through Zoom.
True.
And I didn't even know how to work Zoom too, so I was on that same boat. But then, so we got a studio. We ended up basically taking over the Loud House studio in Santa Cruz for the time being, and we set up everything. There's a bunch of like Reels videos of us like painting the room and stuff and making everything look pretty. But we only had one person actually come in. We still had to do like Zoom interviews. So that was kind of, it was cool, but then it was kind of sad because we didn't get to like use it to its full potential.
But what you did, what you learned, and what you showed me, and what a lot of other artists and people working from home and you know wherever they had to, we all learned how we can take advantage of the technology we have now.
Yeah.
So like, because that would suck if like, oh, I can't come, so no podcast at all. Mm-hmm. But really, it was like really.
Well, yeah, that's why we're like, well, now it's like,
there's ways.
Now there's different ways of doing it, not just Zoom or the internet.
And that's what everything taught us. So there's good and bad, but I just think it's cool that you kept it going, and at least the artists were willing, if it was a Zoom or like, you know,
even a phone call or something. We had to do it. I think most of the first interviewees were on Zoom, and then Meta Azul was probably the only one that was like a phone call, and then No Morals, I believe, was the first in-person interviewee, and that was at the Loud House studio with the green screen. And then after moving on from the Loud House studio, we ended up using the Greenhouse co-host space. So that's where I was like,
and that's where the last few have been.
Yeah.
With Not Humans, with El Calpa.
But like, I guess just to recap on why I started the podcast was just, I had like so many friends that were artists and independent artists, and they had so much different experiences than me, and they had different, you know, paths that they were going down. So I wanted to kind of just capture their journey, but also like make that into, you know, something you could learn from, something you could take, and if you're an artist, that you could use that same information to help your career, or, you know, to progress, to help other artists, basically. Like,
yeah. So but what led to it though? Can you remember what it was that created, like, that made you want to create it? And then we helped come up with a name.
Yeah.
And we're like, Breakaway Artist Society.
Well, like, I don't know, just the idea of like, I guess me as an artist wanting to know other people's journeys and how they're making it work, how they're doing it. Like, cause like I know what I know, you know what I mean? But you learn from other people, you learn from sharing experiences. So like, that's why I was like, okay, well, like, we'll think of a name. That's the collective, I guess. That's the idea of it. And then the platform, I guess, is just, let's interview people. Let's start somewhere, you know? So that was like it. It was just like, I'll just start interviewing people, like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, because, I mean, you know, at some of the shows in Santa Cruz or other shows we would be going to around the Bay and then South Bay, Salinas and all that, like we don't always get so much time to talk with these artists that we build small friendships, but then this podcast has gave us a chance to really peer into their lives. It is a way for us to also connect deeper with the artists that we know,
right,
because we don't get a lot of chance to really like dig
or even to just have a normal conversation, because when we're at like shows and stuff, obviously it's loud, there's music playing,
you're in artist mode,
you're in artist mode. Like if I'm there, I'm in artist mode, so I'm not trying to like, you know, like I'm mingling, but I'm not like, let me know your entire whole life story. Like,
what's your favorite color?
But yeah, the podcast has definitely opened a lot of like opportunity to get to know people on a deeper level, but also in doing that, you're kind of taking more time to appreciate their journey and their music. And from that, you're able to like share with other people and help them with their journey and their music, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't even know that are super simple things, you know. So that's kind of what we wanted to do for this year, is to start implementing like topics as well as like continuing with our guests. So just be prepared for that. There's going to be some topics, and we're going to have like open forums so you guys can kind of submit stuff that you guys want us to talk about.
Definitely.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, and this is all like a big networking. It's all networking, and it's community.
Yeah.
That's our approach. That independent grind.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about starting the podcast, because obviously like my realm is music, so I kind of just like jumped into it, and I kind of just want to explain a little bit of my journey, because I didn't even know like what I was doing. I was just kind of like, to me a podcast is audio, but everything is like video now, so now you have to do video and audio. So when I jumped into it, obviously the best thing for me to do was Zoom, because at the time that's how everyone was doing it, and everyone was recording their interviews and stuff. But the problem that I learned very quickly with Zoom is that not everyone has like a great audio setup.
Oh,
like,
that's true.
The first interview that I had with Angel, he was talking to me like on a little earphone speaker, and it just sounded real bad. So we had to like redo that. The audio was like horrible. And then recording on Zoom, the way that they compress their audio is just like, it's just horrible. So I had to move away from that, and I started like learning about the different like audio recorders. So like the little Zoom recorders that you could just put batteries in, you plug it into your computer, and then you can capture way better high quality audio. So that was great for my end, but then there were still artists that I was interviewing through that same process that didn't have, you know, or they didn't know how to set up their interface and their microphone for like an interview. So
that would make that can make or break the
podcast. Because like the video could look great, but if the audio sounds bad, then it's just hard to like sit through for me.
And that's crazy that you're doing it and we're doing it, and now like a lot of other artists around us are starting to like wanna also. Because we're super underground. Like the scene in Santa Cruz and Salinas, like it's as underground as it gets. Like and a lot of our people don't promote either.
Oh yeah, that was me too though. I didn't promote.
I know. So
I started it. I just like, I kind of hinted at it, I guess, on my Instagram. I like just like, there you go, I'm starting a podcast, but I wasn't like lingering on it. And then I just literally like went rogue and like created a separate YouTube account. I created a separate Instagram account, and then I just started posting it, and then just organically like. And
then now you got the page, Breakaway Artist Society YouTube page. So how many subscribers?
Now we're at 103.
That's cool.
Yesterday I posted that we got our first 100 subscribers, and then it like went to 103, like 3 people like
snaps for that.
So yeah, thank you guys for that. Appreciate
100 subscribers. I mean, we really have no agenda. Really, the only thing is that we just want good artists to be heard.
Yeah, and like there's so many independent artists out there. There's so many local artists that are just awesome people and awesome music. So giving them a platform and also kind of just sharing knowledge through that is like it's just awesome. So this is just like the fun part of it, you know?
Yeah.
So if you guys really like this podcast, please consider donating and supporting us. We're going to keep working through it and do whatever we can, but all in good time, you know?
Yeah,
good things take time.
Because at every step of this, we need participation.
Yeah.
We can't interview any artist if there's no artist.
Yeah.
And if there's no one to watch, then there's no one to watch. Why keep going?
Yeah.
So yeah, we need participation. We need engagement.
Yeah.
So if you're in there, anything literally helps.
And if you're a local artist too, please reach out and, you know,
tell them about the forums. You know what I mean? Like what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we're changing the format a little bit more, so it's more accessible to local artists. So if you're a local artist, please fill out the form. We'll check out your music. We'll check out who you are as a person, and if you fit the criteria, then you know we'll interview you. A lot of the artists that we interview are all like exclusively invited. So just to kind of throw that out there, a lot of people were asking about that, but we want to make it more accessible to other people. But we also want to, you know, make it known that this is something that we're doing for fun, and we're doing, you know, we're taking time out of our day to do it. So we want to make sure that the artists that come on bring the same respect and respect our time as well as we're reciprocating that. So
definitely,
it's going.
The work that goes into it is hours and hours.
Yeah, so we could talk a little bit about that too, like learning podcasting. Think about what you're going to talk about. If you're going to talk to somebody, you got to think about who, and setting up like just some sort of like guideline of what you guys want to talk about, or kind of just gear the conversation. So setting up like, you know, some notes for yourself, some show notes, and then making sure that you got good audio gear for sure. I invested in a few different like recorders, and I found one of the best ones that I personally like. There's a bunch, so you guys are gonna have to like.
What brand?
It doesn't matter the brand.
No, but just tell them your brand.
All right. Well, the one I picked was the Zoom Live Track L8.
So Zoom. She's had 5 different Zooms already.
I personally like the Zoom recorders for podcasting, but
for portability, right?
A lot of people,
ease of use.
I like their format and everything. A lot of people do Rodecaster and stuff like that, and that's cool. But that was just a little bit out of my price range, so I was just kind of going with what I can afford. But if you're trying to start a podcast, you know, get what you can afford. Some people even record off their phone. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do, and then invest, save money and invest, and keep working towards getting better. So setting up show notes, what you want to do, audio gear. I invested in some just regular everyday microphones, stage microphones, sure, SM58s.
If someone right now is like, you know what, I got something to talk about. I want to interview people. I'm gonna podcast on a budget. What's a good budget for podcast gear, Mike?
Okay, well, if we're gonna start like that, then get a Zoom recorder. You could probably buy one used. I get used gear, but you can get one used probably for like maybe $100 to $200-ish, depending on what recorder you're getting. And then the microphones that I got them used as well. So the Shure SM58s, they run for about $100, but I go used, so I got them for like 50 each. So I bought 3 of them, and then I had this one. This is like a personal like microphone that I was using for live music.
So you just recycled it?
I just recycled it.
Okay.
And then headphones. I personally like podcasts with headphones because when you have guests, you know, they don't always have the best mic techniques. They'll be like this. We love you, La Sofa Queen.
She's like, I don't know the whole mic.
She's like, but nah, it's cool. So definitely getting some headphones. I invested in headphones during Black Friday, so all my headphones were like $10 each. So I was able to get 4 headphones for $40 about. Got the recorder, the mics, the headphones. Oh yeah, and the video gear. If you're gonna do a podcast with video, I mean,
anything, any camera. You got phones.
Any camera. Like right now, as we're recording this, I'm using a Canon, an old Canon from when I used to shoot music videos from like 2012 maybe, like they're really old. And then I have like an old phone that I'm using,
but it shoots 1080, so it's like good quality.
Yeah, if you got 1080, like then let's go.
Even 720 for YouTube, because you don't need that much. Nobody
yeah,
watches
I mean,
it.
you could get a 720.
Nobody watches it
but,
in like those high qualities.
But basically, yeah, you could start a podcast for. I mean, if you budget right,
under 400.
Under 400.
Yeah.
And if you just use your phone, even you could even keep it close to like 300, and
Yeah.
So,
and chances are some of these artists will already have like things.
Yeah, like if you're
a camera,
if you're an artist too, like, and you have microphones already laying around, then just kind of use what you got. Like, you don't really need to have a bunch of fancy things. Like, I kind of just I'm more of like a just shoot anywhere. Like, we're here in our room.
Yeah, either way, we're making it work.
I learned about how to distribute this. Oh, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. You got to learn how to edit audio. You got to know how to edit a podcast audio, like,
and video, technically.
I mean, and video if you're doing video. That's just like a headache. But I mean,
so how did you learn how to edit audio?
Well, I personally already knew how to edit audio, but
from being an artist.
From being an artist, because I edit my own audio, but you can hire people on Fiverr, or there's a lot of people in the Bay Area that are always like looking for work to edit podcasts and stuff. You might pay a lot for sure, but if you learn how to do it yourself, then you could save money for sure. I would say invest in so you could record off free software like on your computer or something, or you could bring it into free software like Audacity. And then if you want to like edit just a little bit faster and make it more efficient, I would say invest in maybe like Isotope. If you look at Isotope, they have a lot of different like plugins for AI editing. I mean, it's not like super like
they're like little cheat.
It's not the best, right? Yeah, like
it'll clean it up.
It'll clean it up for you, and then you can kind of tweak it to how you need it, and it'll save you a lot of time. It's mostly just cutting, and you don't really have to do so much like EQing and all that stuff. Like, if you're not like into all that, you don't really need to do it, but there are like definitely resources out there, and you don't need to spend a crazy amount of money just to make a podcast.
And all this can be like, you can just go on YouTube, right? And
you could go on YouTube, look it up, and even like, so what I was gonna say prior to this was distributing it. I started using Anchor, which is like Spotify's version of like their podcasting thing. So you could even start a podcast on your phone without any microphones on Anchor. Like, you could record on your phone
and just upload after.
This isn't sponsored by Anchor, just to throw that out there, but I'm just saying, like, I've seen a lot of videos and done a lot of research, and they're like, yeah, you could.
But if you do have a good phone quality and good Wi-Fi connection, you probably could.
Yeah, you could. The only thing is that's audio.
Okay.
There's no video component to that. So if you wanted to do like video podcasting, then you're gonna have to like either learn how to do Zoom or invest in something like Riverside or something like that. So that's what I've learned, is like trying to get into this podcasting realm. It's a little overwhelming, but then once you start kind of just dialing down the basics of what you need, it's kind of just like you can just go. You don't need to like really think too much about it, because now I've done it so much, I'm already like, oh yeah, it's super simple. Like, you really don't need to overthink it. So time management also is very important.
Luckily for us, we've always like, when we've made money off certain gigs or videos, we've always just like put that back into the business and reinvested it in what we needed next.
Yeah, that's best practice. So like,
it's like we bought lights and then we made the money back from a music video.
Yeah. And then from the music video, I save anything that I get music related, and I put it back into music or back into what I'm doing. So I was able to get a new recorder and trade my old one in because it didn't work that well, and I was able to invest in microphones for our guests and headphones and stuff like that. So definitely like recycling any money that you generate from some of your hobbies that you do. That's the best way to just keep supporting
keep
it, keep
funding
it growing
your hobby. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's an
that's a
artist at
lesson.
work gem right there.
Yeah.
Is like, just watch your finances and
money management, and
yeah.
basically just whatever you generate, if you can put it back into what you're doing, it'll just keep funding itself, and you don't have to scrape pennies just to like get some new gear if you want it. You'll be able to like put it on credit or something, but never buy something that you don't have money for and put it on credit. You always need to make sure you have money before
for
you
your
buy
bills,
it.
money for your food.
Yeah, you gotta eat. So
but yeah, for sure though, this is all, if it's an investment in yourself. Be huge time investment, but also financially, money. It's gonna take a little bit of money.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely invest in, like, if you're trying to start a podcast or anything like that, definitely do your research and take time, take notes on the different ways that you can do the podcast and the different gear that you can implement into your podcast. And don't think that you need all the bells and whistles just to get it, because there's different ways and there's different workarounds that you can do to make it happen.
All right, so this next one, trying to schedule interviews effectively in your phone, on a physical calendar on the wall.
It sounds simple too, but I'm just saying, like, so we kind of talked a little bit about this with Alcalpa, but I'm not sure if that was like in the interview or off the interview. But okay, so one of our guests, Alcalpa, he was the last guest. He also was doing podcasting, and what he was like learning was he had to do everything by himself. So he had like 2 different cameras running, and he was running with the audio, and he was trying to interview the guests and be the host and do a million things. So one of the takeaways that we learned from him that he was kind of sharing was that for interviewing guests and for getting guests on your podcast, communication is like the number one thing that is needed in order to get it to happen.
Yeah.
So like there's been a lot of artists that I pitched the podcast thing to, but it just didn't align with their schedule, or there just wasn't really an open communication line to where we were able to set a date. But for the artists that were able to do that, they were able to kind of just set the date, and it happened. You know what I mean?
We would check in like a week before.
It's really just
week.
that simple. Like you get a date and
set
then
a time.
You prep for it. And another thing too was for the artists, like they came prepared. You know what I mean? Like they came professional, they came ready, so nobody's wasting anyone's time. So I mean,
yeah, we were ready to go.
Not every guest is like that. That's the reality. We're all people, but just being upfront when you're scheduling people for your interviews, guests for your interviews, be upfront with, what you expect and what they can expect from the interview. And there's nothing really else like to that. I think it's pretty straightforward, and there's a whole surplus of people that are interesting, that do art, do music, entrepreneurs, whatever you can think of, any kind of podcast that you're doing, there's people out there.
They have podcasts for everything now.
You really could just reach out to anyone, and I mean, if they're interested in it, and you guys vibe, then there you go. You got an interview.
This is the foundations of Breakaway Artist Society. It's what she wanted to start, and then I became a part of it by default, but also because I understand the movement, the concept. I understand why it exists.
You also see the work, all the work that I've done.
I see the independent artists at work
happening. I make the, I had to make the intro song, had to have the scripts ready. I had to get all the audio gear ready and set. Making sure our guests are comfortable.
She does everything. I just help her carry stuff.
He just looks pretty and sits in my interview.
So donate for that. All right, donate for that.
Yeah,
work,
definitely. If you guys love what we're doing, again, please consider donating to the podcast, and we're just gonna keep trucking along. We're gonna keep doing as much as we can.
But yeah, Breakaway Artist Society, Artists at Work on Spotify. Where else to find the podcast? YouTube,
Yeah,
right?
so for sure, like, yeah, if you guys are watching this, obviously on YouTube, Breakaway Artist Society. Artists at Work podcast is more for like Spotify and stuff. So if you're looking up the Artists at Work podcast, just Google it. Artists at Work podcast, Breakaway Artist Society. It'll pop up. You could also go to my website, iam1am.com, and you'll find a link to
And
everywhere. So
your
we
Instagram
got,
too, right?
yeah,
And
my
your-
Instagram. So you'll be able to listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor. I just got it on Google Podcasts, Castbox, and yeah, stay tuned for more. We're gonna keep getting this podcast on different platforms, but for sure those are the main ones.
But keep supporting.
Keep showing love to the artists.
Go back and watch the other videos.
13 interviews. So if you haven't checked out some of those, please definitely go back. There's definitely a lot of gems for a lot of you independent artists out there. There's definitely a lot of things to learn from, as well as not just music, but just being a better person in general, being a better artist, whatever your hobby is, whatever your dreams are. There's definitely a lot of knowledge and wisdom that is shared in those podcasts. So definitely go check those out.
So
well.
true. That's facts. Yeah, we learn so much in every podcast from all these artists. They tell us about their lives, and then they tell us how they made it to where they are now.
Yep.
And it applies, everything we learn from them, it applies to all of us, because we're all in the same boat right now.
Yep. So thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Thank you to our 103rd subscriber, and we're excited to see this grow more. Thank you to all our guests who've been on the previous episodes. Thank you for the people that are watching but haven't subscribed. We know you're out there. Please subscribe. And if you guys support the podcast, please consider donating. And we'll see you guys next time. This is the Artists at Work podcast.
Peace.
Peace.